Hello. I just spent 25 minutes, I'm hoarse, doing the video for you, and it stopped recording after 5 seconds. So I don't know if my voice is going to hold out or my lighting is going to hold out. Anyway, I don't even know if I can repeat everything I did. Okay, so I'm just going to do bullet points, honestly. First of all, hello, I'm Stacy Davies. I've been a film instructor at OSHER for 12 years now. If you don't know me, that means I have not made you cry yet, and so you should take one of my courses so I can make you cry. My film courses are not about entertainment film, they're about film that I didn't start out this way, but it's ended up this way. The films that are transformative in some way, that talk about our humanity. I like films that are thought-provoking, sometimes they're shocking, but I don't screen films just to shock you. I want to talk about them. And so I didn't really know what to talk about on Tuesday because, like many of you, and at least people I know, I've gone through a lot of changes over this past year in lockdown. And one of them is that I'm not quite as interested in film and television as I used to be. And what I am interested in regard to those two things is more of a kind of a cultural anthropology look at it. So it's sort of what I've already been doing, the direction I've been going, for those of you who are my students and have been my students, and I'm just kind of going further in that direction. So, but I still do love those old classic films, and I watched a really great one the other night with Bette Davis from 1931. She was like third billed, she wasn't anything, and Humphrey Bogart was a side character. It was great, called The Bad Sister. It's on YouTube. I howled. It's quite something, and only an hour long, one of those. Anyway, I'll always love the classics. But I guess there's just a couple things I want to talk about on Tuesday, so I want to give you a little bit of a prep time beforehand. The first one is, and this again is just my interest from a cultural standpoint, especially considering that the entire world has changed. And I'm one of those people that wants the world to change. I am not one of those people who, throughout this period, has been saying, gee, I can't wait till things go back to normal. I hated normal. I didn't think we were going in the right direction in a lot of ways. So I'm hoping many of us emerge from this with new goals and new perspectives all over the world. It's the first experience the entire world has had to go through together. That says something. And I don't know how anybody could be the same as they were. I don't know how we can be the same. I'm not the same person, not at all. I mean, I'm still fun. I'm still a good time. It's just different now. Maybe a lot of you, some of you have also felt that way. We can talk about that. We could spend all Tuesday just talking about how we've changed. I would love that. That'd be my favorite conversation ever to have. I like people. That's probably my most defining characteristic, honestly, is that I really like people, and I really am interested in people. I'm interested in everyone I meet. The poor grocery store clerks and people who I've seen occasionally during this lockdown, they're probably just like, get out of here, lady, because I just love talking to people. So I love talking, which you know if you've taken my course, and I'll just start up some kind of conversation with anybody in line, the cashier, da 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 da. I just love that interaction. So anyway, what was I talking about? Me. So I still talk about myself too much. That hasn't changed. Anyway, so one of the things I wanted to kind of find out about from you and talk about this is just sort of a periphery kind of issue, but I'm wondering what's going to happen to movie theaters. I'm not going back to them. I didn't really like them too much lately anyway. They're expensive, and people who are there next to me seem to think they're in their own living rooms instead of in a public place. Adding alcohol to that mix didn't help probably a lot. I do like the reclining chairs and all that, but I can do that at home. I can have a comfy chair and watch films at home and use my own nice bathroom instead of the public bathroom. And I don't know. It's just always like a bunch of people in baseball caps and flip flops and ratty t-shirts, drinking and being loud and looking at their phones the entire time or whatever, talking. It lost its appeal for me, the theatrical experience. I also do have a 92-inch electric movie screen that I moved outside for the pandemic and built a frame for using tree stakes from cypress trees. I built it. And then I'll probably put up a picture. And then later I built a Japanese soaking hut so I could sit and boil myself in the evenings and think about myself and life and all that. So it helps during the pandemic if you were in lockdown completely alone like I was, and that you didn't have to work, like I can do my work online. I didn't have to go to an office or be like Zoom calls all day, nothing like that. And I was completely by myself. So it was a nightmare and a blessing. I had a lot of time to do some thinking about me and my life. And so I hope some of you had that opportunity too. It was really hard. It was very hard. I'm much better now. I'm good now. But anyway, so I wasn't keen on movie theaters anyway. And truthfully, Netflix and Amazon are going to make sure we don't go back to the movies because they're both production studios now. They're churning out their own films. They're getting the most nominations at the Oscars and the Golden Globes and all of that. The traditional movie studios are struggling, and they're going online. Paramount Plus, everything's Plus, Disney Plus, AMC Plus. I'm going to start my own website, Stacy Plus. It's me, but just more, just more of me. No increase in fees. No increase in fees. It's still free. So I remember like in 2018 when Roma came out, and it was in theaters like a month, and then they moved to Netflix and everybody freaked out. Oh my God, it's not a real film if it's online, you know? And then the next year, The Irishman did the same thing, was out for fewer days than in a month. And then it went on Netflix and we thought, oh, this is not a real film. It's like, well, then the plague came and everything went online. All films were released video on demand. I think a few debuted in some theaters, but I think sometimes they did that just so they could qualify for the awards shows, the Oscars, which nobody is probably going to watch this year. I don't think anyone really watched the Golden Globes. So maybe awards shows are dead too. They kind of were stupid. They were getting dumb and they weren't as fun as back in the day when Jimmy Stewart would, old Jimmy Stewart would get out of his car and his escort would be Faye Dunaway or something. Those are my favorite award show days, the 70s and the 80s. But anyway, so what's going to happen to movie theaters? I'm curious to know, are you going to go back? Would you go back? Do you need to go back? I don't like the germs, people touching things. I never liked it to begin with, so now I don't have to do it. Netflix and Amazon are going to make sure you have all the content at home. Most of you probably have really big TVs. I have a regular sized, screen, but in my house anyway. What's going to happen? I'm curious if you have any preference, actually. I mean, I know you don't know, we don't know, but maybe you have an opinion like, oh yeah, I can't wait to go back. Cool, then I hope you get to. I think that probably in the future, theatrical experiences are going to be reserved for what they've kind of already been, the direction they've already been going in, which is like superhero films, Marvel Universe, DC, blockbusters, maybe big epic war films or something like that, probably horror films. Not serious cinema like, speaking of transformative cinema, transformative content, The Father, right? Came out, Olivia Colman and Anthony Hopkins, one of the most thoughtful, intelligent, powerful, transformative films that I've seen in a long, long time, about Alzheimer's, dementia, right? The filmmakers took such care and they really tried to make us feel what it would feel like to have that illness. And that's transformative because if you know someone who has it, I think it helps you understand them a little better. And if you don't have anyone in your life who has it, it still helps you understand it, especially because it's probably coming for some of us, either personally or to those we love. That's transformative. Nomadland, transformative cinema. Fabulous film, absolutely incredible. One of the best films I've seen, one of the most important films that's ever been made, especially right now. That's serious cinema to me, to everyone. I don't think those are going to be in the theater anymore. I think they're going to be online. And, that's the way, I don't know, the film rolls, I guess. So I'm interested in what you think. And I think cinemas are going to be reserved for blockbuster type films, like almost amusement park experiences, and then literally probably immersive experiences. The younger generations love cosplay, dressing up. They love to be immersed in worlds that, look like cinema worlds. They want to live in the films that they love. They want to live in Lord of the Rings and in Harry Potter. They want to exist there. It's a very, very much an escapist generation. And a couple generations really. And I don't really blame them because look at what we've done to the world. We just caused a plague that shut the entire world down. We're not doing something right. There's something with the environment we're not doing right, or labs, or who knows? We don't know exactly what happened, but I don't know. I don't think it was an accident as far as I don't think it would have come out of nowhere if we had maybe been going down a better road in general on a lot of things. I'll just say that. So I don't blame them for wanting to escape all the time, and I don't think we should give them a hard time about it. But a lot of them are quite serious, and they want to fix everything that we broke. Also, well, I didn't really break it. I'm Generation X. We didn't do anything. We've just been smoking pot since 1990, I think. We're the forgotten generation. Anyway, I don't smoke pot, just by the way. I was just saying, that's like a cliche about a slacker. So what do you think is going to happen to theaters? Do you care? Are you going to go back? We can talk about that. Then the other thing I want to talk about is transformative television. Television's changed a lot, and when I say television, I mean, streaming services, cable television, maybe YouTube, web series. Anything that's not in a movie theater is now television. So what does that look like, and what kind of content are we watching? What are, there used to be this idea of quality television, and I'm just making sure I'm still recording. Oh, good. It's only been 12 minutes. I can talk a lot more. There used to be this is an academic thing, by the way. There used to be what we call quality television. Quality television was high production value television that tackled social issues or was provocative or thought-provoking. It's a little bit of it's actually very much an elitist idea of television. And usually the shows that qualified for quality television were, about upper class white people, upper middle class white people. Mary Tyler Moore is sort of the flagship quality television, and then linked onto that kind of thread would be later on Murphy Brown, right? Single working women. Mary Tyler Moore at a time when women, a woman in the newsroom was a really big deal, and she's independent, making her own money. She's not just looking for a husband, she doesn't have any kids. And then like Murphy Brown, right? Didn't she also work for a news show or some kind of television magazine program? Can't remember. I didn't really watch it. But, and then she has the baby, right, out of wedlock, right? Dan Quayle had a heart attack. So these would be quality television. Then there was like B grade television, or blue collar television, they called it. Very elitist. Like, the non-smart people watched game shows, soap operas, talk shows. I think a lot of people watched those, not just in a certain class structure. And then it kind of and then like as we got into the 80s, like the Cosby Show, right, was the first Black experience show that was quality television, because it was high production values. They had a big budget, right? It was a happy, perfect family. They were wealthy. He was a doctor. She was a lawyer. And then we start getting into this class thing even more, because then the Roseanne show came along, and that was considered blue collar television because the family was blue collar. But if you compare those two shows, both of which are now completely tarnished because of the horrible people who created them, thanks for that. Like, maybe you can't even watch reruns of either one really anymore. Anyway, but everyone, a lot of people hated the Roseanne show because Roseanne Barr was overweight and she was obnoxious and she was loud and talking like meh and her grammar was off and all this stuff. But I have to tell you, if you put those two shows side by side, Roseanne show actually had thought-provoking content. She had regular gay characters on. She had shows on racism and pregnancy and abortion and aging and abuse and all sorts of just everything. Cosby Show didn't do any of that. They had one episode on a teenage pregnancy, or like some college friend of one of the kids got pregnant. And they had one kind of show on racism. They stayed all the way away from important issues. So how is that quality? The blue collar show's doing it and the fancy show's not. So this is, the definition started to change. By the time The Sopranos and the cable series shows came out, everything started becoming quality television, especially from HBO and Showtime. So you're talking about Sopranos, Nurse Jackie, Weeds, what was anything on HBO or Showtime was now quality television. And this started raising the bar for television. Then the non-premium cable stations started getting in on the action. AMC and particularly FX with Breaking Bad, quality television. The Americans, my favorite show still. I watched all 6 seasons again for the 5th time in lockdown. I love that show. Better Things, that's quality television. And now that Netflix and Amazon are doing original series, everything's quality television now, like everything, because everything has cinematic production values, cinematic directing, often cinematic stars, big stars. Meryl Streep, Nicole Kidman making cable series, Kathy Bates. In years past, movie stars would never have appeared on television, right? They only came to television when their careers were in the toilet, basically. They couldn't get a film deal. So now television is actually where it's at, not the cinema. The cinema has become this sort of amusement park, as I mentioned earlier. Marvel and superheroes and fantasy and wizards. And I'm sorry if I sound disparaging. I hate that stuff. So I don't go see those films. I don't watch that stuff on television either. But so now television's where it's at. So now I'm curious, what are we going to do with this about everything being quality television? Because I think we're being duped. I think we're being fooled. I don't think everything is quality television, but it looks good. So we think it's good. Or perhaps it's a show about, if you're gay, it's a show with a bunch of gay characters. So you're just like, I love it, even though it's garbage because it's about gay people. Maybe if it's a show about the Black experience, it's not really a very good show. Maybe you're just so happy to have a show about your experience. You're like, I like it anyway, I don't care. So there's a lot of like identity preferences that are at play in television. Sometimes we watch things just because it has characters in it that are like us, right? And there's more and more of that. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying we need to be discerning about when we need to be discerning about what we watch and what we celebrate, I guess, is my point. I'll give you an unpopular opinion. You're not going to like this very much, and we can talk about it on Tuesday. But I'll tell you a show that broke the rule. There's a rule that if it's not on the page, if it's not in the script, it can't be on the screen, meaning that if you have a junky story, a junky script, there's no way to make that into a good film or a good series. It just can't be done. It has to be written first. There's no amount of dressing up you can do to make a poorly structured story, an underdeveloped story, good. That has been the rule forever in Hollywood. And I think I found a show that finally broke that rule, and this is the unpopular opinion. You're going to be mad at me. The Queen's Gambit. There is no substance to that show. You know what it is? It's fantastic costumes and hair. It's wonderful set decoration. It's a fantastic soundtrack. It's amazing directing and editing, and the CGI, right? The chess pieces on the ceiling, so cool. Still don't know how to play chess. Still not interested in chess. Nobody learned how to play chess from that film, but we loved seeing the chess pieces. That's a winner. You can make us watch a thing about chess, a woman playing chess in the 50s, and then I guess 60s. But to me, it's like they had a checklist. What are all the things we need in order to make a perfect series? Okay, independent young woman fighting sexism, check. Black best friend, check. Gay boyfriend, unrequited love, check. Arrogant guy who thinks he can beat her, and then she be, arrogant guy who comes to worship her, check, right? He had to like have his ego. They gave her a whole gang of male admirers. Old mentor who never made it, so he's living his dream through her. Check, 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 check. And it's so like it's so intentional. And I know that film and television have to be intentional to a degree, but it feels intentional. And I turned off the first episode. I was like, I'm not watching this. And a friend of mine who was watching it said, no, just stick with it. And I did. And I got hooked into it because I liked all that stuff I just mentioned. And I wanted to see how they were going to resolve it. But honestly, I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't know anything about any of the characters. The only character I liked was the alcoholic foster mom. She was so original. I loved her because when she found out the girl had a gift, like I thought, oh no, she's gonna like be jealous of her or abuse her or use her. None of that happened. She was like, cool, let's do this thing. And they just became partners and just went around and made money. It was like her agent, but not forcing her. So I loved that character. And then, of course, she had to die. But spoiler. That was the only good character. So if you look at a series or a film or whatever, if you can write a paragraph on a couple of the characters, then it probably has depth and substance. And the paragraph can't just be, I liked her hair or I liked her shoes. I liked that she won. We all liked that she won. And I hope she stayed in Russia because they appreciated her. But, you didn't, I don't know if you walked away with much from that, but it was beautifully done. Beautifully done. Fooled everybody into thinking there was something there. By contrast, so I can show you what I'm talking about, the limited series Fosse Verdon is deep. It also has wonderful costumes, wonderful hair, great soundtrack, wonderful directing, incredible actors, right? But it has poignant dialogue. It has humanity. It has character revelation. We know what their ambition is. We know what their drive is. We know what they want other than just to win a chess game. We know how their identity is wrapped up in their craft, their dance, or their art, or whatever it is this character is about. There are scenes in Fosse Verdon that you will weep for characters. You love Gwen Verdon. If you don't fall in love with Gwen Verdon, the Gwen Verdon character played by Michelle Williams, I mean, I don't know where your heart is. I don't know where your brain is. So this is a same kind of deal, but the writing is fantastic. It's rich. It's deep. After every episode, you're left with something. This is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of that's quality television. Okay. So I think we have to change that definition. I know you don't care about this in your day-to-day life, but I'm just talking later to any academics. We got to change that definition. I think it's already been destroyed, but quality has to be content. It can't just be how it looks anymore. That's kind of what it tended to be in the past, more so than not. So I'm curious about what you're watching. I'm curious. And oh, by the way, and you can like the Queen's Gambit. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with you or that I would look down on you if you like the Queen's Gambit. I enjoyed it. I did. But I also know that it wasn't much. It was a little surfacey. And you don't have to love Fosse Verdon, although if you don't love Fosse Verdon, there might be something wrong with you, but we'll have to talk about that. So anything's fine. You can like whatever you want. No judgment, no judgment. I'm not judging. I judge the makers of the thing, not the people who like it, okay? So what are you watching? Did you Are you the kind of person that can only watch something new? Like you hate old style directing, or like if you were to watch Cagney and Lacey now, would you be that person that would say, "Oh, that would never happen. Oh, that would never happen. That would never happen," and totally forget that you have to watch those shows in the context of their time? Kind of like if you watch I Love Lucy, you don't say, "Oh, that would never happen." That would. It's like you got to remember it's 1955, right? Same with 80s shows, Cagney and Lacey. You got to remember the audience wasn't as sophisticated back then. We didn't nitpick to death. We didn't know everything or think we know everything. I remember watching the film The Sixth Sense with a therapist. Don't ever do that, because she's like, he would be just whatever if he did that. You could never do that. That a therapist wouldn't do that. I'm like, get out of the room. Get out of the room. You're ruining a film for me. I'm not a therapist. I don't know the rules. So like, you can't watch doctor movies with doctors and lawyer movies with lawyers. You know, they ruin it for you. So like, maybe you didn't watch anything old because you would just pull it apart. And that's okay. You don't have to like old things. Maybe you only watched new content. If you did you run out of content? Because I did. I ran out. Or did you like just watch anything just to have it on? That's kind of my mom sometimes. She'll just watch things she hates just to have it on. I'm like, I wouldn't do that. I don't want to do that. Personally, I have to tell you, I went back and watched, I had never seen except maybe 5 or 6 episodes of Little House on the Prairie. And I thought, I have a goal. This is like the middle of the pandemic. I have a goal. I'm going to watch every single episode of Little House on the Prairie. And they're all free on IMDb TV. And I did, pretty much. I gave up in season 7 when Laura Ingalls was an adult, and then Nellie Olson left because there was no more good dynamic. But anyway, I was shocked. I was shocked at how great that series was. I mean, it's great. It is like fantastic acting. They tackled everything. Again, like I said before, racism, abuse, alcoholism, orphaned children, adopted children, menopause. Menopause? Yeah, Little House on the Prairie has a menopause episode with Carolyn Ingalls. Death, fat shaming, 2 episodes about fat shaming. It's brilliant. I was watching it thinking 2 things. Number 1, Michael Landon takes his shirt off a lot, and that's fine because he was gorgeous. And number 2, he's a brilliant writer. He was a brilliant writer. And I mean, I'm not a religious person, so there is, some, not a lot, but some of that, they're all Christians and they go to church and stuff and they have a little bit of a preachy thing, but it was okay because they all believed it and it was like true stuff. It was stuff we could all get behind, like do unto others, that kind of level Christianity. It was totally non-judgmental. So anyway, I loved it. I was freaking out. And they even have a pandemic plague episode where everybody has to stay in their cabins because there's a plague running around and people are giving it to each other and dying. And there's a scene with Carolyn Ingalls, the mom, in their little house on the prairie with the 3 kids doing homework and fighting, and she's going to lose her mind because the kids are cooped up with her doing their homework while she's trying to do her housework. I was like, hello, 2020, totally prophetic. So anyway, I watched that and I really enjoyed it. It was comforting. It made me want to go live on a little house on the prairie. It's probably what got me building that stuff in my backyard. I thought I'm going to be a prairie woman. It was just nice. It was a nice escape, but it was transformative. That actually changed me. A show made in 1974. How many years later is that? Almost 50? Less than 50? 20, yeah, 40 years, 47 years later, 40, terrible math, 46 years later, I'm sorry. So almost 50 years later, I'm watching that show in 2020, learning from it, connecting to it. I'm connecting to a family in the 1880s. That's transformative. That lasts. So what did you watch? Did you go back and watch things that were comforting, that you already liked? I watched, as I said, The Americans again. I watched the entire series of Bates Motel again, which I loved. I watched a lot of stuff I already liked series-wise, all the seasons again. And I watched some new things, but I found myself a little less interested in the new things. Maybe you only liked to watch documentaries, but that's also transformative, right? I loved My Octopus Teacher. Fantastic, right? I watched these before I canceled Netflix. So what did you watch? What do you think of quality television? Do you think about that? Do you ever have the feeling when you're watching all of these things that they're just missing something, like a little humanity or a little depth or a little purpose, or maybe they're not leaving you with much. Are you aware that a lot of the things out there are just glitz, that they're mesmerizing us with their soundtracks and their costumes and their beautiful faces, and maybe not delivering so much on some of the things that we grew accustomed to having on television and in film? In those maybe those early quality series like the ones I mentioned, Sopranos, Nurse Jackie, that kind of thing. I don't know. What do you think about that? And then I wanted to right now recommend to you some transformative television that I have found. And in the past, transformative television mostly came in the form of social issues about race, about gender, about equal pay, about rearing children, all sorts of things, sexuality, right? And so there were groundbreaking shows that tackled those things either with storylines or with the actual show itself, the characters, how they were cast. Think of Diane Carroll in the 60s series Julia, right? First Black woman to head her own show, and she was a nurse. She wasn't a maid or something. So we've had transformative television in that regard. And now that we are really into an era where the representation is so much better for just about everyone, and it's just growing and growing and growing, especially for the Black community, with voices like Ava DuVernay, and Shonda Rhimes just taking over, right, and creating their own studios. And we have like Queen Sugar and Lovecraft Country and Steve McQueen's Small Axe, right, that series of films, which, by the way, the very first one is about the uncle of our very own Sandra Richards. So you should watch that. It's about her uncle, the Sandra that you know. There's just, and then a Black lady sketch show. Love that. So there's tons of representational content out there. So transformative then, I think, has to go. I think we're at a point where we can think even bigger now about transformation. And I believe that the trends of mindfulness and yoga and meditation and all that kind of stuff that are becoming so popular are an indication that many of us are thinking beyond just the 3D and incorporating those beliefs into the 3D, into our politics, right? There's a lot of legislation, a lot of proposed legislation that is so profoundly human, and there are a lot of people fighting against it because they want the old way. They don't want to change. They want things to go back to quote unquote normal, right? So it's like kind of these two forces. So there is television that is asking other questions about our humanity that go beyond our identities. And I wanted to tell you about a couple of them. I have to move my thing here and look at my list. Oh, it's still recording. So I'm so paranoid now that it's going to shut off. My throat's literally bleeding. Okay, so I wrote like 12 pages of lecture. I didn't look at it one time. That's a professional. And I think I mentioned everything. Okay, so here's just, I put the definitions because I like definitions. Transformative, the definition of transformative, causing, talking so much. Definition of hold on a second. Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. And I do apologize. One of the things I did during lockdown is fill my house with Alexa. Oh no, she heard me. Never mind. And I haven't touched a light switch in months. I'm just like, Alexa, turn on the kitchen, turn off the kitchen, make the kitchen 20%, turn on the den, turn off the bedroom, turn on the porch, turn on the deck, it's awful. I created a Ray Bradbury home for myself. Anyway, I have it set on a routine to turn on an oldies show from KSPC in Claremont every Sunday at 2, and so it must be 2 right now, and it's really loud, so I had to yell at her. Anyway, so I'm not a Luddite. I love technology. You should see when I tell her, Alexa, take me to Paris, and I have all these special lights that go on in the living room, and like a glitter ball disco light, and then all this French music starts playing. It's fantastic. So yeah, I couldn't leave my house, so I made the world come to me. I digress. Transformative, causing or able to cause an important and lasting change in someone or something. Seems pretty obvious, right? And then uplift is to improve the spiritual, social, or intellectual condition of whatever, something, you and me, hopefully. Okay, so here's some shows that I think fall into that category. Excuse me, these are the shows that I'm I'm most interested in lately. Although again, I watch a lot of stuff, so I'm not trying to judge anybody for not always being, deadly serious about film and television like I used to be. I'm looking at this again more from a anthropological, social, cultural perspective. What's going in our eyeballs and ears, and therefore into our brains and into our hearts. That's what I'm interested in. What is it doing to us? How are we changing? Are we more interested in this kind of stuff now, I hope, and a little less interested in all the murder shows? Like, I think I've seen every possible way that you could murder someone and dismember their body and like hide it or dispose of it. I don't think I needed all that information, and I definitely don't need any more rape. We get it. We get it. No more young woman raped, dump the body as the mystery or the detective whatever case. I'm sick of it. We went through 100 years of cinema and then later television without having those stories, and so I think obviously that's reality. We should have some of that, but I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of everything being murder. That said, Killing Eve is one of my favorite shows, and it's pretty gruesome, but I could do without that. That's not the part I like. It's the interaction between the actors is what I like. So more of that, less gouging out eyes and chopping off heads and things. Anyway, that said, I'm not a goody two-shoes, and I'm not moralizing. I certainly enjoy a steamy sex scene as much as anybody, and I don't mind a lot of profanity in my shows if it's character appropriate. And so one of the shows I wanted to mention is a show that actually came out in 2011, and it only had 2 seasons, so that's kind of good. You aren't sucked in for many seasons. Unfortunately, a lot of transformative television does get canceled pretty quickly because it has a niche audience, and all the shows I'm going to mention to you, I believe all of them are critically acclaimed, but a lot of people didn't tune in. Maybe they will now. Are we ready now for this kind of stuff? Because the show I'm going to tell you about in a moment seems like if it came out now, it would be a massive public hit, not just a critical hit. There was a show that came on HBO. It's still on there if you do on demand, called Enlightened, and it came out in 2011. It starred Laura Dern, and this is what their blurb is. Laura Dern is a self-destructive executive who, after the implosion of her professional life and a subsequent philosophical awakening in rehabilitation, tries to get her life back together. Also, it's set in Riverside, so that should be, it's not, they don't have not all the shots are from Riverside, but there are a couple buildings from Riverside, and it's supposed to be in Riverside. So she's always like, Riverside, Riverside. So maybe if you like that. It was also written by Mike White, who also appears in this series. Mike White wrote a lot of wonderful things. He's very profound and brilliant and such a humanitarian in his writing anyway. Don't know personally what he's like, but I would assume similar. Anyway, he wrote the screenplay to Beatrice at Dinner. So if you were offended by that film and felt like you were being called out, then you won't like this series. And if you were one of the white people that was like, okay, or one of the white people was like, yeah, then you will like Enlightened. But if you felt threatened by Beatrice at Dinner, you're not going to like this show because it's all about calling out, money and power and all that kind of thing. So anyway, Enlightened, and I think I'm either running some of it up here, or I might run the trailer. so you can see. I think this one I might run the trailer.
At least admit that it was you, David. Tell me that you did this. You think I'm stupid? Is that what it is? You think I'm I will bury you. I will kill you.
I'm speaking with my true voice now.
I put all this energy into my healing. That same amount of energy I now have to work.
I just got back from treatment and I feel amazing.
I meditated on you, Mom.
Why? I mean, what for? You're full of possibility.
Don't try to save me.
Wouldn't you be happier working for a place that's like giving back to the world instead of some corporate parasite that's raping the land and people?
I will not run away from life.
You got it all figured out now, Amy?
I think you're hanging on by a very thin thread.
I will be an agent of change.
You'd have to be lobotomized to sit down here?
You are a mistake, and everybody knows it.
You can wake up to your higher self. The world is full of possibility. You can really live.
I told you I didn't want to get involved.
We can do something more with our lives.
So that was a trailer. The second show only has one season because it came out right when lockdown began, but there is a second. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is the wrong one. This one only had one season, and I think it's a shame because I thought it was terrific. It's called Forever. It's on Amazon, and it stars Fred Armisen and Maya Rudolph, who also live in Riverside. There's a lot of spiritual awakening happening in Riverside, Hollywood thinks, apparently. So it's a married couple who live in Riverside. They've been together for like 12 years, and it's very funny. It's a weird show. At first, you're not really sure what the tone is, because like they're this funny kind of SNL, Saturday Night Live married couple, and they're really kooky and weird, and they love each other. And then all of a sudden, their marriage kind of starts they're kind of sick of each other, right? 12 years. And then, this is not a spoiler, I don't think, but they die. And then they actually end up living in a complete replica of their life in Riverside in the afterlife, and they're married forever. And it's a really interesting series because it brings up all these questions you might think you already knew the answer to, but when you're faced with it, it's like, wow, okay, would I want to be with this person forever? And what is my goal in the afterlife? Because in this afterlife, you still have to keep growing and changing and learning. So what are you going to do with that? I mean, you don't have to, but it's pretty boring in the afterlife, just like it's boring here if you're not continually changing. So it's very profound. It has a lot of existential type questions. It's only one season. You might want to check it out. It's fun. Similarly, another afterlife kind of program is also on Amazon. It's called Upload. This is the one where the first season was released in May of last year, and now they are going to do a second season, thank goodness, because I really loved this series, and it's going to come out next year. Okay, Upload is some of these I'm going to run a little thing up here, and others I'll show you the actual trailer. But it's about this young man who unexpectedly gets an accident. He dies, and in this near future, you can either die, or you can get your consciousness uploaded into a virtual reality program. And that's what happens to him. And it's about him dealing with his immortality, which really is forever as long as the computers keep running. And it's very funny. It's, again, poses a lot of interesting questions about technology, about death, about what do you really want, who are you, what defines you. So it's one of those. It's very thought-provoking, but it's also really funny. Very clever, super clever, great dialogue. So maybe I showed you that trailer. Probably I did. If I did, that's the trailer. Then there are two shows by Ricky Gervais. I have to say, I don't like Ricky Gervais as a talk show host or an award show host. I'm not sure I would like him in person, but I do think he's a brilliant showrunner. He makes terrific films and television series. And two of those, one of them is called Afterlife, and it's this one, contrary to the title, is not about life after death, but it is about life after a death. So it's this very cynical man whose wife dies of cancer, but she's in the show the whole time because she's left him all these video messages so he can keep watching some message from her all day. And it's like it's the theme for that day. And he's very cynical, and he basically wants to kill himself because he has nothing, and she was his whole life. And it's about love and tragedy and loss, and what do you do with those emotions, and who are you without the person who sort of was a part of your identity. Incredibly profound, very moving. I haven't seen the second season, but I did really enjoy the first season. And that woman from Downton Abbey's in it. Penelope, is that her name? She's great. Anyway, she's in there. The other series that he did that I love was titled Derek, and Afterlife and Derek are both on Netflix. Derek, he plays a mentally slow guy named Derek who works at a senior's home. And this show, oh my God, it's so good. It's about disability and life and love and relationships and what's important and who are you and who am I and what defines, it's all that. If all of these are all the same stuff, right? It's pretty much all the same kind of stuff. So Derek, I would do that one. I have 4 more to mention, I'm going to let you go. 2 others that are just mind-blowing. There's a show on Netflix from Germany titled Dark. And it is the most intelligent series ever written, ever in the history of television. I'm saying it right now. Everyone who's seen it, I think, feels the same way. If comments I've seen on videos are any indication. It is not about child abduction. It is not Stranger Things, but in Germany. It is about the interconnectedness of all humans through all times, and it takes place. I don't want to ruin it because it's one of those shows where every time you watch an episode, and especially at the end of like the 3rd episode, I think, of season 1, you go, whoa, what? Okay, this isn't the show I thought it was, because it kind of seems like a missing child. We got to find the child abduction thing with maybe some horrible torture. It's not that, so stick with it. Because once they do the reveal of is going on, at least to that point, every single part of this series, three seasons long, will blow your mind. I had to start taking notes. That's how smart it is. I had to start taking notes about who was who and who was related to who, and the casting should have gotten an Oscar, just the casting of these characters. I can't tell you any more because it'll ruin it. Trust me. Fantastic. And it is about life and existence and the universe and why are we here and what does it mean and what does our journey mean. Okay. A show similar to that was on HBO called Years and Years. That's 6 episodes long. It's only 1 season, so it's a limited series. Wonderful. Again, it's a bunch of different characters in the same family and how their lives change. And what makes this so cool, Years and Years, is that it kind of gives you this bit of everyone's life, and then it does this 5-year montage into the future, which are always really scary, and then we pick up again. So I think it ends up taking us to the year 2032, and one of the things it predicts that, it came out in 2019, and the guy who wrote this series, Charlie Brooker, he is the creator of the Black Mirror series. So he's very much a futurist. Anyway, I don't think this is a spoiler, it's not a big deal, but in the show, he writes in 2020 that Donald Trump is reelected. And it looks exactly, when we saw it in 2018, we're like, yep. And then, it didn't happen. So it was the one time Charlie Brooker seems to be wrong. And a lot of people were probably quite pleased about that. Anyway, it's a fantastic, fantastic show, Years and Years. And again, it's about connection, And then lastly, there are 2, one reality show series, surprisingly, and 1 documentary I want to talk about. They both are about disabled folks. So the first one on Netflix is called Love on the Spectrum. I'm going to show you the trailer of that. it's not just about loving these people with a disability who are just trying to find love like the rest of us, but it makes you look at yourself. Like, I remember, I think I watched 1 or 2 episodes, and I wrote something on Facebook at the time, like, wow, we are all so petty. I'm so petty. I'm so awful. Like, I just thought, oh my God, think of all, like, just how difficult do I make it, to have a relationship with someone. They're this, the people in this series are such a wonderful mirror. It's just the truth right in your face. It makes you look at yourself. So Love on the Spectrum on Netflix. Here's the trailer.
A lot of people our age aren't interested in commitment. They're only interested in intercourse.
Finding love can be hard for anyone.
Do you feel anything about me?
Some girls don't feel like dating someone with disabilities.
That was too awkward. Even though I'm on the spectrum, I'm capable of falling in love.
Well, I hope we can help you achieve that.
I really hope so too. I seriously do.
This series follows young adults on the autism spectrum.
Hello there. It's very The Bachelor.
Because it's entirely scripted.
Where's my script?
Let's see. No.
As they navigate the confusing world of relationships and dating.
Shall we pay for ours separately or something?
What is your disability? Because I'm not seeing one.
What does autism look like to you?
Point taken.
I just knew I was different. Sinead just felt similar to me.
I love you.
I want to experience love.
Don't automatically think we're gonna start kissing right now.
It's going so well.
And then the second piece that was produced by Barack and Michelle Obama's new production company on Netflix called Crip Camp. And this is essential viewing. I was going to show it in my class later in a couple months I'm going to do, but I picked a different documentary. But see this one too, because I'd love to talk about this at some point with anybody. So Crip Camp, here's the trailer.
What, you want me to tell them what happened? Well, 2 people got cramps and they're spreading. We were all very hyper about it. And I have to go shower some people. I'll see you later.
I wanted to be part of the world, but I didn't see anyone like me in it. I hear about a summer camp for the handicapped run by hippies. Somebody said you probably will smoke dope with the counselors, and I'm like, sign me up.
Have to catch Jeanette and find yourself.
There I was at Woodstock.
You wouldn't be picked to be on a team back home, but at Jeanette, you had to go up to bat.
Even when we were that young, we helped empower each other. It was allowing us to recognize that the status quo is not what it needed to be.
The world always wants us dead. We live with that reality.
At the time, so many kids just like me were being sent to institutions. It was just a continual struggle.
Most disabled people, like myself, are unable to use public transportation.
We needed a civil rights law of our own.
A rehabilitation program has been vetoed by the president because it was cost prohibitive.
We decided we were going to have a demonstration.
You get the call to action, to the barricades.
A small army of the handicapped have occupied this building for the past 11 days.
So many people from Camp Jeanette found their way into the building.
The FBI cut off the phones. The deaf people went, we know what to do. That's how we communicated to the people outside the building. The Black Panther Party would bring a hot meal. We were like this.
We are the strongest political force in this country.
We will no longer allow the government to oppress disabled individuals. And I would appreciate it if you would stop shaking your head in agreement when I don't think you understand what we are talking about.
What we saw at that camp was that our lives could be better.
If you don't demand what you believe in for yourself, you're not going to get it.
I said for pleasure.
You like to see handicapped people depicted as people.
Excuse me?
And that's it. I'm done. So, 50 minutes. I do apologize. Actually, it's probably longer than that because of the trailers I'm going to stick in. Anyway, sorry. Here's an hour of me talking. Maybe I covered everything, but now you have a lot to think about. So Tuesday when we talk, maybe we can all just expand on all this stuff. And if you don't want to talk about anything that I mentioned, that's okay. Maybe I covered it all. Maybe there's nothing left to say because I took all the air out of the room. But we can talk about anything you want. So ask me anything. That's fine. Bring up anything. That's cool. And so, I guess the questions to think about are, what are you watching? Why are you watching it? What do you want to watch? Are you going to go back to movie theaters? Do you watch transformative content? Are you interested in that more now than you were before? Are you still not interested in it? Do you just think film and TV are just kind of pure entertainment and you don't want to think about it too seriously? You don't have to do that either. We could maybe just talk about, maybe where we're going as humans. I think it's the time to talk about that. I think a lot of people feel that way. So anyway, thanks for sticking with this. I'm sorry it was so long, and I will see you Tuesday. Bye.